The gentleman that I'm about to interview and introduce, I first read one of his books back in 1999. And is Randy Hartnell in the audience anywhere from Vital Choice? Where are you at? Okay, give it up for Randy because he introduced me to Dr. Andrew Weil, who you're going to hear from next. He's got an amazing company, and you guys should work with him. Okay, buy his food, Vital Choice. All right, so let me do a quick intro, and then I'm going to get into some questions for a few minutes. Then we're going to give all of you an opportunity to do some Q&A for a few minutes. Andrew Weil, MD, is a world-renowned leader and pioneer in the field of integrative medicine, combining a Harvard education and a lifetime of practicing natural and preventative medicine. Dr. Weil is the founder and director of the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Arizona in Tucson, where he also serves as a clinical professor of medicine and professor of public health, as well as a Lovell Jones Professor of Integrative Medicine. He's a best-selling author of 15 books on healthy living, including the recent Mind Over Meds, Fast Food, Good Food, True Food, Spontaneous Happiness, Healthy Aging, and 8 Weeks to Optimal Health. Oxford University Press is currently producing the Weil Integrative Medicine Library, a series of volumes for clinicians in various medical specialties. More volumes are in progress. Andrew Weil also serves as the editorial director of drweil.com, the leading online resource for healthy living based on the philosophy of integrative medicine, and pens the popular Dr. Andrew Weil Self-Healing Monthly newsletter and a regular column in Prevention magazine. Dr. Weil is the founder and chairman of the Weil Foundation and the founder and co-chairman of Healthy Lifestyle Brands. He's also a founder and partner of the growing group of True Food Kitchen restaurants. If you've not eaten there, amazing. In 2017, he joined Seabourn in the On-Board Spa by Steiner in their Spa and Wellness with Dr. Andrew Weil mindful living program offered on all its cruise ships. And he's also the founder of Matcha.com. And there's a lot more I could say, but give it up for Dr. Andrew Weil. The top there, I'm wondering if there's some relevance on the... When's the last time you've not had that beard?
I started growing my beard on Thanksgiving Day, 1970, and I never shaved it.
Wow. Wow. You ever done anything weird on Halloween, like dyed it blue or anything?
Well, it used to be, there have been times when it's been down to here, and I lived in South America for some years in the 70s, and I had a girlfriend I was traveling with used to braid my beard and put ribbons in it.
That's awesome.
So it was interesting walking around streets of South American cities looking like that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you're the top integrative doctor in the world. I mean, in terms of your reputation, what you've reached. I've just reached millions of people over the years. What is your definition of optimal health, and what are the little hinges that swing big doors for optimizing health? And that's a saying from W. Clement Stone's Little Hinges Swing Big Doors, but I've never used it in this application.
Well, first of all, when I ask most of my medical colleagues to define health, the answer I usually get is absence of disease. The word disease means an absence of ease, so to say that health is an absence of ease is not very helpful. Yeah. And I think we should have a positive sense of health. So for me, health is a state of wholeness and balance that allows you to move through the world and not get hurt by all the things out there that have the potential to hurt you. Gotcha. So it's a kind of inner state of springiness and balance, and it should be accompanied by a positive sense of having energy and good feeling.
I'm going to skip to I have a few questions, but based on what you said, things that won't hurt you. One question I have for you is, what is one action the majority of people take every day that is ruining their health? And what is the solution?
Oh, geez. One of the main principles of healthy living that I teach is proper breathing. And I think many people don't breathe properly and have never been given instruction on how to breathe. I think breathing is the most important function in our organism, and learning to breathe is essential. So you find a lot of that information in my books on my website, but basically you want to try to make your breathing deeper, quieter, slower, and more regular. Those are the 4 qualities you want to develop.
You know what, when you came to my office at the Genius Network meeting, which was fantastic, I did a great interview with you, and some people have seen that. You actually taught everyone there how to breathe. Can we just do a short version of that right now?
Sure. I teach a breathing exercise that's called the 4-7-8 breath. You can find me, videos of me doing this on YouTube, and it's all over my books and website. But basically, it's breathing in through your nose quietly to a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 7, and blowing air out forcibly through your mouth for a count of 8. So I can demonstrate this.
Let's do it. Would you guys like to try that?
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot.
All right, just
Okay.
watch me first, and then we'll do it together, and I'll count for you. So it looks like this. So that's it. It's 4 breath cycles, takes all of about 30 seconds. This is a practice. You've got to do it at least twice a day, but let's try this. You can do this in any position, but if you're seated, keep your feet on the floor and your back straight. And this comes from yoga, and in yoga practice, you're asked to keep the tip of your tongue in the yogic position, which is touching it to the tissue just above your upper front teeth, like that. They say that makes an energy contact that keeps the energy, the breath within. I have no idea what that means in Western physiological terms, but they invented it, so we should do it the way they say. So first, let all the air out through your mouth. Close your mouth, in through your nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's it. Just breathe normally. Notice any changes you feel. Some of you may feel a little lightheaded. That's not the goal and will disappear quickly with practice. Some of you may have some sense of relaxation doing that. That will become very powerful as you practice this. This is a practice. You've got to do this at least twice a day religiously. I do it in the morning when I get up before I do some sitting meditation. I do it at night when I get in bed to fall asleep. After a month, if you're comfortable with it, you can increase to 8 breath cycles, but that's the absolute maximum, and then you do that a minimum of twice a day. The real changes from this happen after doing it for about 6 to 8 weeks. This lowers heart rate, lowers blood pressure, improves digestion. I could tell you so many stories. I've seen people who've had cold hands all their life who now have warm hands just from doing this. I have a very low heart rate, and I'm not a fanatical exerciser. For much of my life, my heart rate was in the normal 70s. But for the past 20 years, it's been in the low 40s, sometimes in the high 30s. And I can only attribute that to doing this breathing technique, which strongly activates vagal tone and the relaxation response. It is the most powerful anti-anxiety measure I've ever discovered. It makes the medications we use look pathetic. And this is a perfect example of what integrative medicine can do. It can look around the world and find things that aren't even on the radar screen of conventional medicine and bring them into mainstream practice. This costs nothing. It uses no devices, makes use of something you have right under your nose, and it is incredibly effective. So please practice this and teach it to other people.
Awesome. Love it. That was great. Thank you. So food. Should charge for that breathing technique.
Yeah, really.
If I had a turnstile or something, we could we make a little money. Food, movement, and rejuvenation
Yes.
are the 3 big areas of health. And so I was going to ask you, and if so, what are the most effective and optimal actions a person could take?
Okay, so with food, the most obvious action is to stop eating refined, processed, and manufactured food. That's simple. I mean, that's what's doing us in. It's been said that our great-grandparents wouldn't even recognize as food what most people eat today. You want to eat food as closely to the way nature produces it. I've developed an anti-inflammatory diet because it really looks as if chronic low-level inflammation is the root cause of serious health problems that kill and disable people prematurely. And anything you can do to contain inappropriate inflammation gives you your best shot at longevity and overall health, and diet plays a huge role there. The mainstream North American diet is pro-inflammatory. It gives us the wrong kinds of fats, wrong kinds of carbs, and not enough of the protective elements that are mostly in fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices. So the anti-inflammatory diet that I have is based on the Mediterranean diet because we have so much evidence for its health benefits, but I tweaked that by adding Asian influences. Spent a lot of time in Asia, and there are things like turmeric and ginger and Asian mushrooms and green tea. And by the way, I have an anti-inflammatory diet pyramid that you can access easily on my website or books, and at the very top is dark chocolate, which I consider to be a health food. So
which we were just eating back there.
We were just eating some back there. Anyway, so I would say follow that, read up on the anti-inflammatory diet, but the main rule is to stop eating refined, processed, and manufactured foods.
Gotcha. Okay, and then as far as movement.
So I think with movement, you want to move your body. It is good to be physically active throughout life. And that does not mean working out with personal trainers. It does not mean running marathons. It does not mean exercising fanatically. It means moving your body. And also, it means paying attention to how your body changes as you age and adapting your forms of movement to those changes. In my 20s, I ran. I got signals from my knees that they didn't like that anymore. I shifted to cycling. And then some years ago, I began swimming, and that now is the form of exercise that works best for me. I try to swim every day. I have three big dogs now that take me for walks in the morning also. I think walking is a best exercise. We've all heard that. I think our bodies are perfectly designed to do that. When I was researching my book, Healthy Aging, I made a number of trips to Okinawa, which was famous for having the highest concentration of centenarians in the world. And the people that I saw there, there are many centenarians. I remember seeing a 102-year-old woman who was hoeing her garden out in front of her house, people carrying water and fishing nets, and they don't go to gyms, but they move their bodies every day.
Yeah. So in terms of like rejuvenation, you've done. I think when I first went to Maryville, as an example, years ago, you had designed like a whole program with them. So what? You have a lot of really driven type A hardcore entrepreneurs that they're not in parasympathetic, and I say that speaking for myself a lot, right? So what are some of the best? Breathing clearly.
Right.
I wanted to get some of your recommendations.
Okay, first of all, I am not a believer in anti-aging. I think aging is inevitable. Everything in the universe ages. And if you make your goal anti-aging, you're putting yourself in a very wrong relationship with nature. And that's not a good place to be. I think we're at a great disadvantage in this society because aging is viewed so negatively. And one of the things that was different in Okinawa is that there's a great value placed on aging, and that the oldest people there are really made to feel valued parts of whole communities. Here we want old people out of the way and segregated with other old people. And the message from our culture is that everything gets worse as you get older. The value of life diminishes, and that's absolutely not true. There are many things that get better with age. Think about wine and whiskey and cheese, and think about what are the qualities that come out with aging that make those more valuable. It's like smoothing out of roughness. It's depth of character, complexity. I know many older people who say that they feel that they have much greater emotional equilibrium than they did when they were younger. There actually are some aspects of memory that improve with age. I remember hearing a biophysicist from MIT saying that he was in his late 80s and said that he thought he was much better now at pattern recognition and knowing where things, if he came across something new, where it fit, because he had more things stored in his memory bank against which to compare a new thing. That's interesting. There are aspects of memory that may improve with age. So I think it's good to be aware of that and not buy into this message from the culture that everything diminishes, the worth of life diminishes with aging.
Yeah, awesome. So if you think about the interests of food groups, government regulations, how our bodies work, and everything in between, if you could create the optimal healthcare system across America for Americans, how would it look and operate?
Well, first of all, we don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a disease management system that is functioning very imperfectly and getting worse by the minute. And most of the diseases we're trying to manage are lifestyle-related diseases that could have been avoided if people earlier in life made better choices about how to eat, how to exercise, how to handle stress, and so forth. So I think the very hard question we have to ask is why, as a society, we can't do a better job of preventing illness and promoting health. And that has, unfortunately, a very simple answer. They don't pay. And until we can figure out how to make prevention pay, we're not going to get anywhere. And you look in, even like take food, people eat what's cheap and what's available. We've made the unhealthiest food cheapest and most available.
Right.
One way we've done that is through government subsidies to commodity crops, which have made ingredients like high fructose corn syrup and refined soybean oil so cheap that they're ubiquitous in processed food. We don't subsidize fruits and vegetables, which are out of the reach of most poor people in this country.
Right.
So there's a lot that has to change. But I think the first thing is to turn this whole enterprise away from disease management in the direction of health promotion.
Do you think it's even doable?
It may be that the whole system is going to have to crash before we can create something new. I'd hate to see that happen, but it looks that it could. We're now spending 18% of our GDP on health, more than any people in the world, and at the same time we have worse health outcomes than any other developed country. The World Health Organization rates us 38th, on a par with Serbia. And that's any way you look at it, infant mortality, longevity, rates of chronic disease. Something is really wrong with that picture. And it's predicted to go up to 20% of our GDP, which is going to sink us. That's completely unsustainable. So something's going to have to change there.
Wow. Well,
I think integrative medicine has to be the basis of a new healthcare system. And I've always said that, one day we'll be able to drop the word integrative. It'll just be good medicine.
Define it for
Well,
everyone.
the short answer is that it's the intelligent combination of conventional medicine and natural and preventive medicine with an emphasis on lifestyle and willingness to make use of all available therapies out there, wherever they come from, as long as they're not going to hurt people and show reasonable evidence of efficacy.
Gotcha. Now, this is I think you'll find this to be an interesting question. It's a little long, but I'll say the whole thing. So if you were consulting with an entrepreneur with a $30 billion net worth, $30 billion, and they hired you personally for $10 million with a bonus of $1 billion extra dollars based on results, so you were massively incentivized to construct an optimal health plan for them, what questions and diagnosis would you do on their life, and then how would you go about designing a plan for them?
This is for them personally?
Yep.
Well, I as an integrative physician, I spend a bunch of time with people at an initial visit, and part of that is taking a very careful history and lifestyle history. So I would analyze that person's, I want to know how they eat, how they rest, how they sleep, how they handle stress, what the nature of their relationships is, what they do for fun. And then based on all that information, I make recommendations of things that they can change. I also feel very strongly that the person giving this information should embody and exemplify healthy living. And this is one thing that I teach all of my students. You have to be a representative of health and healthy living yourself if you're going to expect other people to make changes.
Yeah, I'm asking that question specifically for a person I know. So
okay.
That's great. So what do you secretly or privately hate about the health industry?
Medicine was never meant to exist in a for-profit system. And I think as medicine has been corporatized, it has destroyed a lot of what's valuable in medicine. For example, throughout history and in all cultures, the practitioner-patient relationship has been recognized as being very special, even sacred. There's something that, I'm tempted to say magical that can happen when a medically trained person sits with a patient and simply allows them to tell their story. That alone can initiate a healing response before any treatment is given. If you have 5 minutes with a patient, it's not impossible, but it's unlikely that you can form the kind of therapeutic relationship that fosters healing. And also, throughout history, that relationship has also been the source of, I think, the greatest personal satisfaction in practicing medicine. And the disappearance of that in modern times is one reason why doctors today are so unhappy. I hear many doctors say they wish they'd gone into another career, or they'd never let a son or daughter of theirs go into medicine today. It's very different from when I went to medical school.
Yeah, well, I even registered Doctors Without Burnout, like Doctors Without Borders, Doctors Without Burnout, because there's so many doctors that are just committing suicide and just,
It's bad. And, I think the people that come to our center at the University of Arizona for retooling and learning all the stuff they didn't learn in medical school, like nutrition, say that discovering this is what saved them and rekindled their, initial love of medicine.
How many doctors have you trained?
I think we've now graduated about 2,000 physicians from a very intensive 2-year, 1,000-hour fellowship training. And these are doctors, also nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, some pharmacists. These are physicians in all specialties, all ages, and they're in practice in all states and many in other countries now as well. And I just got a letter from one of our graduates, a Filipino man, who has now set up an integrative oncology service in the Philippines, which is being recognized as a model in Asia for a new kind of cancer care. So, you know, the seeds that we've spread out there are really bearing fruit.
Awesome, awesome. So if an entrepreneur, like many people in the room, is constantly traveling, what can they do to ensure they optimize their health?
Travel is tough. You know, travel is really difficult. I think for myself, first of all, trying to maintain good eating habits as best you can, trying to spend some time outdoors and in nature, taking all precautions on planes and international flights. Every time I've gotten sick in the past, I'd say 5 years, has been after an international flight, right, even when I take, most precautions. I think trying to maintain good sleep, getting activity. I say for me, often walking is the best that I can do if I'm traveling, but that's something. Those are, and I take various supplements and natural products that I think are helpful to me as well.
Okay. What's your perspective on, and we've talked about this a little bit, health and addiction?
Health and addiction. Well, that was my early work, was in that field, and I think, first of all, that addiction is universal. I think we're all struggling with it in one sphere or another. It's just that some addictions are socially unacceptable, so they catch our attention, and others are socially acceptable, like shopping, for example,
right,
or making money, or power. Even addiction to thinking, which is given great status in universities. So, I think that I think one strategy you can do is to shift addictive behavior towards things that are less harmful rather than more harmful. It's better to be addicted to running than to smoking cigarettes, for example. Yeah. Even though that may still be, an addiction. Right. But I think to try to get at the root of addiction is really tough. And for me, the wisest advice I've seen there comes from Buddhist psychology, which says that the root problem of addiction is the illusion that satisfaction and contentment come from outside rather than from within.
So with, there's a lot of, Anna David, we wrote a book together with Hal Elrod called The Miracle Morning for Addiction Recovery, and talk about the 4 areas of, what, in my experience and in my own addiction recovery, community, yep, biochemical, which yep, is the gut, and food, nutrition, the trauma work, dealing with the underlying trauma work, where breathing, yoga, EMDR, yep, somatic therapy, plant medicines and psychedelics, if used properly, and then the environment. Those are the 4 areas with addiction, and you have a lot of experience with psychedelics and plant medicines, and even in 1971 you wrote the book about marijuana and
the natural mind, which is about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about that, because right now we have a lot of people, and I think some of it's incredibly healing. The proper guided ayahuasca journeys, psilocybin, MDMA. But there's a ton of people running around calling themselves shaman. People going to Burning Man and getting high in a camper and thinking they're having a spiritual journey, and maybe some are. So there's, what are the pros and cons of psychedelics and plant medicines? Because it's really
there are 2 different things. I mean, first of all, just plant medicine. I'm trained as a botanist before I went to medical school.
So you're thinking,
so I use medicinal plants a lot in my practice, and I teach people about them. And I think, in general, plants that have healing properties are much, much safer than molecules isolated from them. We have a terrific problem of over-medication in this society, and also the adverse reactions caused by these pharmaceutical drugs are terrible. I think most people are unaware of the extent of it. Death from adverse drug reactions is now the fourth leading cause of death in hospitals in this country. And that amounts to something like 300,000 or 400,000 people a year. And this is not mistakes. This is the right dose of the right drug for the right patient, for the right indication, and 300,000 people a year die. That is not acceptable. You can count on the fingers of one hand the deaths from herbal medicine in this country, and almost always per year, and that's almost a mistake that somehow something got mislabeled in mispackages. So plant medicines are much safer. But in addition, the qualities of their effects are often much better because plants are complex mixtures of molecules, and our bodies are very complex. And when you give those complex plant preparations, they mesh more smoothly with the body, and very different from giving a purified chemical to the body and pushing it in one direction. Often that gets you into a lot of trouble. So I'm a great proponent of plant medicine. Yeah. Now, one subset of that are the use of these psychoactive substances.
Right.
Everything from cannabis to the psychedelics that you mentioned. I think that in general, these are very probably safer than any of the medical drugs that we use. You can't kill people with marijuana. You can't kill people with LSD. You can't say that about any of the medical drugs that we use. So on a physical level, they're extremely safe. I think the potential of them for healing, not just psychological healing, but physical healing as well, is enormous. I've seen really remarkable changes in people as a result of experiences with these. The dangers of them are psychological, and that has to do with what you mentioned earlier about set and setting.
Right.
How a person's expectations are structured and the environment in which these are used. I've spent time in shamanistic cultures, particularly in South America, and observed a lot of shamans in operation, and there was a mixed bag. I mean, I saw some who were drunks and just doing it for money, and I saw some who were brilliant psychotherapists. Right. But I think we need a new class of practitioners in this country. If these drugs are going to become part of the mainstream, which it looks as if they are, right. I think very shortly MDMA is going to be legalized for PTSD and psilocybin for the treatment of OCD and drug-resistant depression. So I think this is happening. But I don't think psychiatrists are the right people to administer these. Yeah. I think we need a new class of people trained to be the modern equivalent of shamans in this culture.
No, I mean, I think out of all the stuff that I've seen, it just holds so much promise. And I also know there's going to be a lot of wreckage because it's so, I mean, they don't know what to do with it quite yet. And,
right.
and it's still illegal, and unless people are going out of the country, and there's so much underground stuff. And, but yeah, I mean, I've seen people absolutely transformed with ibogaine and ayahuasca and psilocybin and MDMA. Right. And I think it holds a lot of healing.
In the early years, and when these drugs first became available and came to the attention of the medical world in the late 1950s, there was very promising research that was done. One was, some of it was at a hospital called Spring Grove State Hospital in Maryland, a psychiatric hospital, where experiments were done with terminal cancer patients of preparing them for a guided LSD session, then giving them the drug, and then having follow-up sessions. And there was really, really positive outcomes in which people lost fear of death, were for the first time able to interact positively with family members. Up to then, the whole subject had been avoided. Need for pain medication was greatly reduced. And these are great outcomes, and then all this got lost as the hysteria about these drugs increased. So I think there's tremendous potential there. By the way, I think I mentioned this at your last meeting. That I would recommend to all of you. Look on YouTube, search on YouTube for a video called Housewife on LSD. It is priceless. This is an experiment that was done back in that era in which a psychiatrist administers LSD to a very, very straight woman, and she has a total, at one mystical experience. It's just priceless. Housewife on LSD, and you'll get some sense of the spiritual potential of these.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
And I've seen some people that were just suicidal and stuff that, with years of therapy had transformed quite rapidly.
And it may be, this is sort of far out thinking, but, our society is in such a mess right now. Things are, not great out there. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is the counteractive force that's going to save us, that the emergence of these in a new way. Maybe that has the potential to really raise awareness and change people's consciousness in a way that will get to the root of some of these problems that are plaguing us.
Yeah. So what are some of the most exciting initiatives and projects you're working on right now, and how can the entrepreneurs here help?
Well, I think you really want to learn about integrative medicine and support it because it is the future. So, first of all, I think you want to have integratively trained practitioners for your own personal care. The website of our center is integrativemedicine.arizona.edu, and there's a Find a Practitioner link there. We have people in all states now, and it is very good to have access to people trained in this system. They're great. So I think whenever you can support integrative medicine, that's terrific. You mentioned the True Food Kitchen restaurants. We just opened the 30th one in Summerlin, Nevada a week ago, and I think there are 5 more scheduled to open in the next few months. So we want to see these all over the world eventually. And to me, a lot of the recipes there are mine. This is food that I've been eating for years, and to see people taking great delight in this kind of food is terrific. I think True Food Kitchen gets the credit for introducing kale salad to this country. I mean, this is something I discovered in Tuscany a long time ago, and I brought it back and taught people here to make. I would never have considered eating raw kale. It was disgusting. But, I learned this technique of if you let it sit with lemon juice and salt and olive oil and other things, it softens the leaves, it debitters them, changes their color, and it becomes delicious. And I was in there, our original True Food Kitchen was this one right down here in Biltmore Fashion
Yeah, that was
Plaza.
the first one, right?
That was the first one. That
Wow.
was 11 years ago. And I was in there one day, and a mother came up to me. She had 2 young kids, and she said, "Tell Dr. Weil what your favorite thing to eat is." And the little girl screamed, "Kale salad, kale salad." And the mother said she had to make it for 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, who would ever have thought that kids in this country would be clamoring for kale salad?
That's funny.
And at one point, this was so popular that we created a nationwide shortage of organic black kale. Just because we were serving so much of it. So it's been incredibly satisfying to me to watch people really liking this food that I've always eaten all my life, and we still don't really have any serious competition. We are preparing food that is absolutely delicious and conforms to good nutritional philosophy, the anti-inflammatory diet.
Well, the actor and comedian Tim Allen?
Yeah.
So I went and saw him live, I don't know how many years ago this was, with my friends Patty and Sheila, and they had backstage passes. And so, first off, we go and watch him, and he's incredibly vulgar. And he had this one, he had this one skit where he's like, he goes, "Everyone's eating kale." He goes, "When did kale get a fucking publicist?" And I thought it was so hysterical. And basically, like True Food Kitchen, before I even knew you,
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. And there's one, it's about a 7-minute drive from where we're sitting here right now. Who has eaten there? Awesome. So, for people, like, one thing that I think makes such a difference is making your own food.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it's like the statistics on how few people do that anymore is very disappointing. And it's so ironic. Sales of cookbooks are at an all-time high. Yeah. Viewership of cooking shows on television is off the charts.
It's like food porn.
And fewer people are cooking than ever. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's food porn. I mean,
right.
It's like... Yeah.
A story that, the first cookbook that I did, I wrote with Rosie Daly, who was Oprah's chef for many years. And it was simple, good, healthy food. And we went on book tour. It was right around the time of the Twin Towers, and it was like crazy out there. And she told me a story that I liked so much that I asked her if I could tell this when we appeared in bookstores. During the years that she worked for Oprah, she rented a high-end apartment in downtown Chicago. And at the end of 7 years, when she left, she couldn't get her deposit back because the kitchen had been used.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
Well, also the statistics I've seen on the percentage of American families that sit down to even one meal together is astonishingly low today.
Yeah.
Eating together is one of the great joys of life. And when people tell me they don't cook, they can't cook, they say it's too complicated, they don't have time, they don't know how. I've always tried to show people, how you can make very simple preparations of food inexpensively, quickly, that conform to good, healthy principles of eating. And I want to see more people get back into making their own food.
Yeah, I mean, like, I never use microwaves. I don't know your thoughts on stuff like that, but I don't use, unless I'm like heating pad or something. secondly, I love things like Vitamix and Instapots and toaster ovens. I mean,
Yes.
there's so much I can do very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's, it
Doesn't have to be complicated.
no, and I mean, so many people just, they think on one way that it's convenient and they don't have time to cook. It's not a good use of your time. But I mean, most restaurant food, you're literally putting shitty oil in your body and
Too much salt.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things. Now, another project of mine, you mentioned Matcha.com. I got that URL, which was a great coup.
Yep.
And I started a company with a friend of mine who's here, Andre Fasciola, and we import very high-quality matcha directly from Uji, outside of Kyoto, where the best tea comes from in Japan. And this business has taken off. And I think many experts say that matcha is just at the point of really becoming a major thing here. I discovered it when I was 17 years old and lived in Japan for a while with Japanese families. This is the powdered tea that's used in the tea ceremony in Japan, but brilliant green, very high level of antioxidants and good things. It has a different effect from caffeine. It's got a compound in it called L-theanine. That's a relaxant, and that combination produces a state of alert relaxation, which is quite different from that of coffee. I love matcha. I drink it every day. By the way, I just saw there was a survey released of the most hated foods in America, state by state. The most hated food in South Carolina is matcha. I'm surprised that they even know what it is.
That's very
surprising. I have no idea what to do that, but I'll stay out of South Carolina.
Maybe you have someone there that has a thing for
Maybe.
matcha. Yeah.
Anyway, please go to our website, matcha.com, and give it a try. And also, I just want to mention that I just got back from Kyoto a few weeks ago. I was there meeting our tea person. I mean, I love that area. But next year, we are organizing a tour for a small group of people, probably no more than 10, to take them for a 10-day trip to Japan, to Kyoto, Uji, Kobe, a few other places to learn everything about tea and matcha in particular and Japanese culture. And we have a couple of slots open. So if anybody's interested in that, it's in the second week of May 2020. And for information on that, if you just go to info@matcha.com, you can get information on that trip.
Matcha.com.
Yeah.
When I went over to your house for the first time, you and Andrew made me some, made me some matcha, and you have this presentation box. Here's what I actually recommend. I don't even know what you sell those things for, because I got two of them.
Right, yeah.
But they have a box, and the presentation, first off, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's delicious. And you have the custom ceramic mug, and then the whole presentation of it is awesome. And if anyone wants to give a gift to somebody that is really impressive, order one of the boxes from Matcha.com.
Right.
What do those sell for? Do you even know?
I think it's about $100. They're not tea bowls get really expensive in Japan.
Yeah.
I was at a tea ceremony outside of Tokyo, and I was the guest of honor, and they made this tea for me, and I was presented in this bowl. It had quite high sides. It looked very rough and irregular. This is the Japanese wabi-sabi style. It was made by some living national treasure.
Yeah.
And after I drank it and gave it back, they told me that it was worth $50,000.
Oh, wow.
I was very glad they didn't tell me that while I was drinking from it. Anyway, I've seen there's a whole culture of stuff around tea and matcha that's quite remarkable.
Well, not only do I like the tea, but I like the ceramic thing, because the only artistic skill that I've ever had was to throw ceramic.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So you can get that at matcha.com. So what I'd like to do is invite a few people to ask some questions to Dr. Weil from the mic. So if you have any question related to health, just go up to the mic, mention your first name, and we'll go from there. So just go up to the mic, and we'll start over here. And by the way, it's really hard for us to see from down here. From the lights, it's pretty bright, so if we're squinting, that's why.
All right, can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
My name's Scott Picard. Dr. Weil, great presentation. I agree with everything you're saying. I know that means a lot to you. Anyway, I was diagnosed with grade 2 glioma, brain cancer, in August of this year. And I'm doing like a YouTube channel to try to build awareness to integrative medicine. My question to you is, if you had brain cancer or one of your family members had it, what treatment path would you take? Because I'm kind of rejected the traditional chemo, radiation for this time, because where my tumor sits is right where my speech
Yep.
is. So if I do a resection, I lose the ability to speak. I can relearn it. But if it were you, what would you do? Because I'm getting a lot of pushback from my family.
I
and
can
friends.
imagine. I think you have to, in a situation like that, you have to evaluate really carefully what the benefits and risks are of the standard therapies, and whether there's anything out there that might be useful to you. Now, this is one of the types of cancer in which cannabis has shown most usefulness. So I would certainly look to see what cannabis preparations might do you most good. There's a medical oncologist at UC San Francisco is a student of mine who's an expert on cannabis. His name is Donald Abrams at UC San Francisco. So he's somebody you might contact for advice about that.
Okay. Yeah, because I've people are mailing me like Rick Simpson oil because they see my YouTube channel's Tumor Tales. So they go there, they ask my address. I'm getting like they're mailing me cannabis, and I haven't tried the Rick Simpson oil. I don't know that I will. But what's the guy's name? Abrams?
Donald Abrams.
Okay.
He's an oncologist.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had a lot. Both my parents died of cancer, and I've had a lot of friends. And when someone gets diagnosed, the sheer amount of conflicting advice
And the emotions around it make it very difficult to make a rational decision.
Yeah, so when someone's in a life-threatening situation, or life-threatening or just difficult medical situation for themselves or a family member, what advice do you have for how to navigate it?
Well, I think there's a really need for a new kind of profession of somebody, a navigator, a medical navigator, and this may be that it's slowly coming into existence.
Yeah.
It'd be very helpful to have somebody who can sit with you dispassionately and help you analyze all of this kind of information that's coming at you.
Right. So who is up at the mic over here?
Hi, Paul Abel. Question about tinnitus.
Yes.
50 million Americans suffer for it. I somehow got inflicted 2 years ago, and it rages at times. Anything new on it?
That is a tough problem. And, this is ringing or buzzing in the ear. You first of all want to find out if there is any treatable cause for it. If there's an infection, if there's any postural abnormality. I have seen some people have good results from doing cranial osteopathy, which is a specialized technique that DOs can do, and there's a group called the Cranial Academy in Indianapolis that will list practitioners. You can find somebody in your area. It'd be worth trying some sessions of cranial therapy or other kind of postural work. I've seen some good results with acupuncture, and there are constantly new treatments that are available. So keep looking out, keep Googling to see if there are any innovative new treatments for tinnitus.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go over here.
Hi, my name's Huli. I'm an integrative physician, and I work predominantly to heal and release emotional pain and trauma. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done and for being a pioneer in this field. It's been extraordinarily influential for me, but also for my patients. Just about every one of them gets a link to all the YouTube videos and instruction on the 4-7-8 breath. So just want to say thank you for your impact and your influence. My question for you is, in your experience with addiction and emotional pain, in particular the work that you've done observing in shamanistic rituals in South America, what have you found, even though that there's no one-size-fits-all for emotional healing, and especially specifically with trauma, what have you found in an integrative approach to be either one of the most effective modalities, or what I call them portals or access points to release the pain?
Gee, there are so many possibilities out there, and I think it's a question of what works for an individual. One novel therapy that I came across in the past year is, it's called TRE, Tremoring Release Therapy. I don't know whether you're familiar with that. It's a fairly simple technique in which you put the body you're lying on the floor and you hold tension in certain muscles, and you begin to get involuntary tremors and start in the legs and then through the whole body, and eventually the whole body shakes. And this was discovered by a man, very interesting man that's who has had a background in chaplaincy work and also medical work, who was in battlefield situations and observed that when people were being bombed, that many people had this kind of, tremoring thing, which was thought to be a bad thing, and it was like a fear response. But his observation was this was a way of the body releasing fear and adrenaline and tension. And it is a remarkable technique. If you Google this, TRE therapy, and actually he's located here in Phoenix, David Bercelli. So that's one that you might look into. I think it's a potentially very effective, non-invasive therapy.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Any suggestions for cold feet?
Yes, do the 4-7-8 breath. And soak your feet in warm water.
That's your advice?
Yeah,
you know what? It
wear
reminds me
heavy
of
socks.
it reminds me of that Chris Rock skit years ago, Robitussin. Just put some tussin on it. Get it in there.
Actually, I did meet people that said that one of the home remedies they had for that was sprinkling red pepper in their socks as well. And that this draws blood to the surface of the body. But often this is from, it can be from poor circulation, and poor circulation can be related to an overactive sympathetic nervous system. So as you get the relaxation response going, you get more blood to the surface of the body.
Okay. So we've got a minute and 30 seconds left according to this. Let me ask you sleep.
Sleep. Okay, huge thing. The numbers of people in this country who do not sleep well, either they don't get enough sleep or they don't get enough sleep of good quality, is very, very high. And the use of both over-the-counter and prescription sleep aids is very high. And the one piece of information I would give you about those, none of them reproduce natural sleep. There's something called sleep architecture, which is the pattern of brainwave changes as we fall asleep. You first plunge into very deep sleep, then you come up and have a period of REM sleep, and this goes on through the night. And so if you take a sleep aid drug, it completely distorts that natural cycle. All of these sleep drugs interfere and suppress with dreaming, and dreaming is an essential aspect of good sleep. They're all addictive and highly addictive and very tough to break those addictions in a lot of cases. There's a whole field called sleep hygiene, which is analyzing all the factors that influence how you sleep. It's everything from the comfort of the mattress to whether you have aches and pains in your body to light in the bedroom. I think it's really important to sleep in complete darkness, to noise, to excessive use of caffeine. Some people are very sensitive to the effects of caffeine, and even 1 cup of coffee in the morning can cause insomnia at night for them. Not being able to turn your mind off. And the 4-7-8 breath is a very good method of dealing with that. So you really want to find out the reasons why people are not getting enough sleep, and then you want to try to correct them. I think that getting adequate sleep of good quality is a key component of health. Gotcha. There's a lot of argument as to how much we need, and there's an individual variation there. For me, 7 hours is just right.
Okay. Okay. What didn't I ask you that I should have asked you?
Geez, I can't think of anything. I mean, that's... you cover things pretty well. I think it's very, very important to have fun and laugh. I think laughter is a very healthy thing to do, and you want to find ways to do that more often.
I'm trying to think there was some study done on laughter versus gratitude, and the people that were laughing more frequently versus people that were doing like gratitude journals. Both of them are beneficial, but there was something about laughter that actually produced a better result in terms of functioning in human happiness.
I saw studies from Japan, and when I try to tell people in this country about them, nobody believes it, but they were done in very good Japanese academic medical center, that laughter can actually turn off genes involved in the expression of type 2 diabetes. And this experiment is done both in mice and in humans. I don't know how you get mice to laugh. I think it may be that they tickled them, and that their reactions were consistent with what happens when nothing laughing. With the humans, they showed them funny movies. But I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, we got 2 here. Well, I'll go, but yeah, we'll just do these 2 and then we'll be done. So go ahead. Oh wait, am I missing someone over there? Oh yes. Well, sorry, couldn't see Sandy. So Go for it.
Sandy Scheinbaum, Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. What are your thoughts on health coaches bridging that gap between disease management and prevention?
My daughter is a health coach and very happy with her work. I think this is a wonderful, new, needed profession that really fills a gap out there. So I think health coaches can be extremely useful. I also see the future of whatever the new healthcare system is going to be. I think it's going to be team-based. I'd like to see integratively trained medical personnel as like sort of, the senior people in that, but I think there have to be teams of nurses, pharmacists, dietitians, mind-body people, and I see health coaches being a very essential part of that team.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kenneth Knipe, and I run operations at Influex. And I just had a question regarding recommended treatments for PTSD. I'm currently a card-carrying medical cannabis patient in New Mexico, and while I have gotten a lot of benefits from some strains, I've noticed it's kind of been more of a temporary effect and not something that could have like extended healing. And I'm just wondering what you recommend after you've brought up some other things in your initial speech today.
Well, I think the research that's been done on MDMA and PTSD is very powerful and very convincing. I mean, so much so, as I said, I think this is soon going to be made available. And that has a lasting effect. So Google that, MDMA treatment for PTSD, and it's becoming more widely available.
Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, Tucker Max wrote a very long and very thorough article of his experience with MDMA. And if you knew Tucker before MDMA, you would see the benefits of it. Okay. I'm kidding. Tucker's always been cool. However, he would admit that it's just been a total life changer for him.
So I'm totally planting this or Joe polishing it. But what's your view on caviar as a superfood?
I'm a big fan of caviar. This is a perfect food. First of all, incredibly high in omega-3 fatty acids. Very good protein. The only questions about it are: is it sustainable? Is it harvested in a good way? Is it environmentally friendly? And as you know, I get Vital Choice has really good Ikura salmon caviar, which I love, but good sturgeon caviar has been hard. I've tended to stay away from because, first of all, it has not been very sustainable, and we've decimated sturgeon populations. But this is why I was so excited to discover your product, and I already ordered some, and I look forward to enjoying that.
Thank you very much, and it is very sustainable.
Yes, I know.
That's great. Give it up for Dr. Andrew Weil. Thank you, sir.